Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it.
What's up guys, Brent here, and today we are reviewing the Nashorn from a company called EccoBike. This is the bike right here. It's a pretty cool fat tire electric bike. Big old 4-inch fat tire, something I'm really coming to enjoy the more that I test these. Something that's kind of interesting about this is it's a full suspension setup. So we got this rear suspension right here, air suspension, and then the spring Mozo suspension in the front. It's just a really cushy ride overall. Really excited to kind of dive into this. Before I do though, just want to talk real quick about the company EccoBike, just my experience with them and my experience with direct order only, because this company is direct order only. So EccoBike, they're actually a pretty new company. They've just been around since February of 2018. They started up in Canada, so pretty close by, kind of like a neighbor, right? They're cool people, and their overall goal is really just to get, it's a goal that I share, and I think a lot of us share here, you guys and just professionally who work in this industry, is to get more people riding electric bikes, not just for recreation, but also like for commuting, right? To kind of swap this out for a car, with the overall goal of just helping people with health, and also with the overall goal of, every car that we take off the road, every time somebody rides a bike and not drive, that's like a car off the road that's reducing the overall carbon footprint. So that's really what their overall goal is. That's what they're kind of all about. They also kind of have a focus on customer service, is what they said when I talked to them. And honestly, I kind of feel like that's the case. I felt that customer service love when I interacted with them, when I called them for questions, when I shot them emails. It was just really prompt, service. Like they answered the phone, they got back to me like really quick. A couple other things that I do that they do that I think kind of speaks to this customer service thing, or trying to put customers first, is as far as shipping goes, they have a flat $50 fee, $49.99 to Canada, anywhere in Canada or anywhere in the US, which is a pretty low shipping fee. Sometimes companies can offer them for free, but at least these guys aren't hiding like a $200, $300 fee for shipping, like I've seen some other direct order companies do. So that's great. Another thing that they do is they offer a 1-year comprehensive warranty, which is just cool. Like, so if I order this bike and I have an issue with it or whatever, like I have a year to kind of work with them and they can replace stuff. So I really dig that. Now, as far as direct order only goes in general, there's kind of one huge benefit that goes along with that. And there's also kind of one, caveat, or a couple caveats of potential cons. So the biggest thing is going to be price, right? There's going to be a savings in price 99 times out of 100. I think that kind of goes with this bike as well. And I think it's a pretty fair deal. It's kind of, it's beyond that entry-level range, I think, and kind of more into almost like a, professional, electric bike, or somebody who's taking this stuff a little bit more seriously than, like the $1,000 entry point. But if this was in a bike shop, I think this thing would cost probably quite a bit more than it does with these guys. So I think that rings true with EccoBikes as well. So cool, kudos to them. Now, some of the potential cons is going to be a communication barrier. It can be difficult to work with some of these companies. Sometimes it's, English isn't always their first language, and while they speak English far better than I speak any other foreign language, of course, sometimes it can still be difficult to talk with them and just to have questions answered in a comprehensive, understandable way. That wasn't the case with EccoBike at all. These guys, it was just easy breezy, man. Like I was saying, it's good customer service, easy to talk with them, no issue at all. A couple other potential issues that can come with this is, fit and finish can be a problem. Sometimes stuff doesn't fit quite right on these electric bikes when I assemble them. And also, I have to assemble these bikes myself. So that's just something to keep in mind, that whenever you guys buy a direct order only bike, you have to assemble it. I have to assemble it, right? But for this, fit and finish was perfect. Everything fit, honestly, just great. And in fact, I actually want to call out that this is one of the very, very few electric bikes that I got out of the box, put the front wheel on, and the brakes were aligned perfectly. There was no rub. I didn't have to adjust them, and that's really, really rare in my experience. So I really, really appreciated that. So yeah, fit and finish, easy, 15 minutes to put this thing together. It was like an easy assembly, nothing tricky, and it was just a nice experience, which is not always the case. Really, all I had to do to get this thing assembled, put the front wheel on, put the handlebars on the stem, put the pedals on, put the seat post in, pump the tires up, good to go. That's it. So not a big deal at all. So yeah, that's about it. Let's talk about this bike now, and let's dive into it. So again, this is the Nashorn, and right off the bat, I just want to say this is a Class 3 electric bike, guys. It has a 750 watt Bafang hub motor here. It's a geared hub motor in the back with 80 newton meters of torque, with the throttle right up here. And there's also a sealed internal 12 magnet cadence sensor down here on the bottom of the cranks. So one thing I just want to really kind of start with and have this be kind of an overarching theme with this video is just safety first with this bike. You know, for me, like what that means is I'm always gonna be wearing a helmet. I'm always gonna be just really kind of paying attention to the road, what's in front of me, because again, this thing can pick up speed pretty quickly, and it can go pretty fast. So with that said, back to this motor. This is that 750 watt geared hub motor from Bafang. I really like the Bafang motors. They're a little noisy, maybe compared to the Broza, you know, or the Bosch systems, but they're good motors in my experience. I've never had any issues with them, no problems or anything, and it's got 80 newton meters of torque, so it's a pretty peppy motor. It does a good job of getting this thing up to top speed. I weigh 185 pounds. I was able to get up to the top speed of 25 miles per hour with just the throttle. On flat ground, and then if there was a hill, I would have to pedal a little bit to get me up to that top speed, which is pretty impressive, again, given my weight, and also given the weight of this bike and just the setup. So this is, you know, this bike weighs 66.5 pounds, which is actually, you know, I think that's pretty light for full suspension fat tire bike. That's, you know, in some cases it's like 10 pounds lighter than some of the other fat tire bikes I've tested. So it's still heavy, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely lighter than some other bikes. Also, you know, these tires, these fat tires, I love them because they're just, I mean, man, they're fat tires. 26 inches tall, 4 inches wide. They do a really good job of floating over any sort of mud. It actually just rained here for the first time like yesterday in like literally like months and months and months. You know, so if I want to take this thing out in the mud, this would be a great bike to do that with, because the tire patch here is just so wide, and it floats over mud, sand, snow, gravel, loose terrain so much better than regular sized tires. I can also air these tires down to like 5 psi, and they get really, really squishy. And it's gonna, you know, these things have suspension properties already because of the air volume, but if I were to air them down, it'd give this bike even more suspension. But if I do that though, it is going to increase that tire patch even more, which is gonna make it float even better, but it is going to increase that rolling resistance. And back to this motor, 750 watts, you know, this thing is powerful, but compared to like having this same motor on a regular size, you know, like a 2-inch wide tire bike with a higher PSI, like 60 or something, you know, this thing, it does feel less peppy than that. And that's just been my experience really overall with fat tire bikes, is they just feel a little sluggish. And, you know, I think that's just because of the heaviness of the bike overall. I think it's because especially when it's a hub motor, you know, it loses some of that mechanical advantage with these, you know, 26-inch tires, because really they're like 28-inch tires because that extra, you know, height from the big tires themselves. And, you know, it's losing that mechanical advantage. It takes more effort to kind of get this thing moving because of that rolling resistance. So yeah. Now down here we got a Shimano Tourney derailleur right here. Pretty entry-level component, but honestly, you know, I've been using these Shimano Tourneys on so many of the bikes I've been testing here. They're direct order only, and yes, they're entry-level. Yes, they're kind of like at the bottom of the Shimano lineup, but honestly, I've never had any problems with them, and I have put quite a few miles, you know, on this derailleur now. So I honestly have not even, well, I've had like one derailment on one bike, and it was just because it was like improperly aligned, but normally no issues at all. The rear cassette here, we got 14 to 28 spread. And then in the front, we've got a 48 tooth chain ring. So back here though, real quick before I move on, you know, you see these kind of bosses right here, these two little holes. This is, I can put a steel derailleur cage right there, and that would kind of pop down like this and just cover a little bit the derailleur and this power cable. So that did not come stock with the bike. That's something I always like to see, especially on a bike that's really geared towards off-road like this, just in case I get like a strike. Having that there would give a little bit more protection to the actual components here. Not a lot, but it would do something. Moreover, it would just, you know, if I lay this bike down or if I accidentally drop it on the right side, having that steel derailleur cage there would just help protect this motor or this power cable from getting damaged, and also help this derailleur itself from getting damaged. Over here we've got this plastic double-sided chainring guard. I like these because it helps keep the chains locked in place, reduces the chance that it can derail towards the inside or towards the outside. You know, especially with something like this where it's just a regular tooth pattern, it's not like a narrow wide. However, again, this being like an off-road bike, you know, maybe this would be better if it was a aluminum chainring guard. And you know, because like realistically this is plastic and it's just I mean, if I hit this thing on a rock, I mean, it's probably gonna break. I don't think it's gonna do much in the way of actually protecting the chainring teeth. Really, I think the purpose of this is just to kind of maybe help keep a little bit of the grease off my pants if I'm riding on the road, and just help keep that chain locked on. So it does serve a purpose, but protection wise, it's not gonna do really a whole lot. Now, this air suspension in the back, this is pretty cool. It's got about 50 millimeters of travel here. And I want to show you guys something real quick. All right, let me grab this. So out of the box, this air suspension, this in the back, it was really low on air. Like it was like maybe set for somebody who weighs like 130 pounds. And I weigh, again, 185 pounds. I'm a pretty heavy rider. And I hopped on this thing and it just kept, every time I would hit the slightest bump, it would just bottom out. And I was like, man, this is not gonna work. So I went out and I picked up one of these. It's a fork, you know, you can put air in the fork. I could probably have used maybe my regular pump for tires, but this thing is just more precise. It only goes up to 20 PSI. So basically what I did here, just to adjust this, is I unscrewed this little thing right here. It's just the cap, like this. Okay. Grabbed this thing, basically just plugged in this end, screwed it on, and I pumped it. It just added like 5 or 6 more PSI, and it ended up working out great. It's able now to suspend my weight and not bottom out, even on like pretty serious jumps, stuff that I was trying out. So just something to keep in mind, you know, maybe if you guys do pick this up before you actually go out and ride for a serious ride, just check this back suspension and make sure it works for your weight. You might need to pick up something like this because this does not come with the bike. If you already have one, great. You can probably find one on Amazon or something for pretty cheap. I just wanted to talk about that real quick because that was my experience. Yeah, I just like the way this bike looks though. I've really come to like this frame style, this kind of sloping top tube right here. I think it does a really good job of just reducing the overall standover height. So for people like me with a shorter inseam, it just allows me to stand over the bike with my feet flat on the ground a lot more easier than like a traditional straight top tube. I also like that this saddle can drop pretty much all the way to the bottom, and it just, again, this is another one of those things for like if I'm trying to get a smaller rider on this bike, or maybe if I want my wife to try it, you know, I can actually lower that saddle all the way, and maybe this will make it easier for her to ride. Also, something kind of maybe a small detail, but I don't always see the seat post clamps on here being this thick. I've seen a couple of them, but normally they're a lot thinner. And again, small thing, but I really appreciate that because it just makes it so much easier to clamp down when it's that wide. It just makes it easier. Small thing, really like it. Also, this saddle, it's a Selle Royale Royal Gel saddle. It's got gel inside here. It's an active saddle, but it's actually pretty comfortable. It's just nice. Good saddles here from Selle Royale, of course. So with this frame though, one thing I do want to talk about is there is only one frame size here. And there's only 2 colors that come with this bike, okay? So, and that's kind of one of the things I really found with direct order only is even companies that have a big selection. These guys have 3 bikes right now. This is one of them. But even with companies with really big selections, there's not always going to be a lot of selections for the individual frames, a lot of diversity, right? So with this, like this, what you see is kind of what you get. I could get this matte white color, or I could get matte black. But with that one frame size, this is going to limit who can really comfortably ride this bike, I think. And it's also going to maybe even like just completely exclude some riders who might be like particularly tall or particularly short. Like this frame might not work because like for me, like I'm 5'10", and this frame, it feels big to me. Like the reach here, I'm really kind of in a aggressive position, which I mean, that might make sense geometry wise, since this is, you know, really geared for off-road, but I don't know, just kind of my experience, something I want to throw in there. But again, 66 pounds now. I do appreciate that. Now the battery here in the middle is going to be a 48 volt, 13 amp hour battery with 624 watt hours of juice. On the top of the battery here, there's a little kind of quick power indicator to see how much battery is left. 4 bar, 25% increments, and just kind of a neat way to, especially if if this battery is off the bike, I can like use it as a portable power bank, because it has this USB type A port right here. So being able to like see how much battery I have left, like if it's in my bag, or, you know, it's just a nice way to check. Now to get the battery off the bike, pretty simple, pretty standard. Throw the key in there, give it a twist, pull the latch, and that's it. That's what that battery looks like right there. Ba-bam. Putting it back in, same thing really, it's just the process in reverse. Just gonna throw that back right here, nice and gentle. One thing I like about this, and if you guys probably just noticed that, is I didn't have to turn the key to pull up that latch to put this back in. It just automatically sinks in there, which again, another one of those small details, which is something I really like. It just makes stuff easy, especially when I'm filming, or maybe if I have like something else in my hands, a drink, and I'm messing with the battery. It just makes it easy to pop in there. Now the keyhole is here at the top, which is great. It's gonna be out of the way of the cranks. It's gonna be out of the way of like my feet. If I'm pedaling, I'm not gonna really strike the key or anything. However, on this side right here on the bottom, this is where the charging port is, and that is going to be in the way of the cranks. It's really easy for the cable to get, let me see, grab the cable here real quick. It's pretty easy for the cable to get snagged when it's plugged in with the cranks, right? Just move the cranks around like this, and you can just see like, it's easy. I mean, it's all up in the way, right? And I actually, when I had to charge this thing up before I rode it, because it was just about dead. And I did actually just pull the cable a little bit with the cranks by accident because I was moving the bike. So just something to really be careful for. It's just kind of like always a reminder for myself is if I'm gonna charge this bike or charge a battery on the frame, I just wanna be mindful that, look, I have the cable in here, don't move the bike because it can pull the cable out, it can damage the cable, might damage the port, could even damage the battery. Last thing I would want is to have a bike that doesn't work. So again, just something to kind of keep in mind there. Also, since we're over here, just wanna give you a little quick, another shot here of that cadence sensor. So this is an internal cadence sensor. It's sealed, and one of the cool things about that is it's just gonna kind of keep dust and gunk from building up a little bit better compared to like the external cadence sensors. 12 magnets, that's gonna be a higher resolution also than some of the fewer magnet cadence sensors, the 8 and the 6s, stuff like that. But even still, there is gonna be a delay from the time that I start pedaling and the time that I stop pedaling and the time the motor spits out power and actually shuts off. So there's two ways that I found to kind of get around that. That kind of delay of the start and stop. And one of them is, if I'm at a dead standstill, and like let's say I'm at a crosswalk or whatever, but it's bottom of a hill in a high gear, and if I want to get going really quick, maybe it's going to take a few revolutions of these cranks before the motor kicks on. Well, this throttle is live from 0 miles per hour whenever it's in a positive pedal assist mode. So when this bike is on, I can just twist the throttle and it gets going immediately. And I really like that. I also use this primarily, that live throttle feature, just to assist this bike upstairs. It just makes it a lot easier to move bikes up and down stairs, well, especially upstairs when you've got the live throttle. Now, on the other hand, when I want to stop, or if I want to cut power to the motor like instantly, especially on a bike like this, when I'm going over, there's no really examples of like tricky terrain, but if I'm like navigating like maybe rocks and stuff, going slow over terrain, I don't want that motor to activate accidentally, especially if I'm in a really low gear and the cranks, if they move a lot, I don't want that motor to activate, or maybe I want it to shut off really, really quick and it's too slow. So what I do is just a slight depression of the brake levers here will activate the motor inhibitors and it'll cut power to the motor instantaneously. So it's like an override. So that's kind of how I moderate the cadence sensors, is with the motor inhibitors and then with the throttle. Motor inhibitors also just a great feature in my opinion. I really like them because it's just, they ensure the shortest possible stopping distance, which again is really important for a bike like this that it's heavy. I don't want to be fighting against the motor. It's powerful, so I don't want to be fighting against the motor. And for an emergency situation, like I just want to make sure that I can stop, as quickly as I can. So motor inhibitors really, in my opinion, they're a total must. And I see them really on almost every single electric bike. So I dig that very much. All right, let's go down. Let's go to the frame here one more time. We'll move to the front. But so you can see that most of these wires are going to be internally routed. I don't know what these little things are called that could jut out of the frame. I've seen them a couple times. I really like them as opposed to just cutting a hole in the frame and sticking them in. I just feel like they look real like aerodynamic and sleek. Just aesthetically, I like them. And they pop out here at the bottom of the top tube. Some wires go in at the top of the down tube and then they spit out at the bottom of the down tube. I like internally routed wires. It just kind of helps protect them. Makes the bike kind of sleek, pretty looking in my opinion. Cable management though up at the top. just kind of, you know, not bad by any means. They got zip ties, everything's kind of clean and clustered together. I do like that. I like it when they're wrapped though. It just, again, just kind of keeps everything looking real clean and nice. But again, not bad by any stretch. The suspension here is going to be a Mozo spring suspension. It has preload adjust on the left hand side, and it has lockout on the right hand side. 120 millimeters of travel here. The preload adjust is going to be kind of like, you know, pumping up this air suspension. I can make the suspension stiffer or looser depending on my weight and my ride style. So that allows me to just kind of finely tune the suspension to like my ride needs. Also, the lockout here is just going to make these shocks dead. So if I flip that switch and I'm bouncing, or if I'm putting pressure on it, they're locked. They're not going to move. And I use that every once in a while if I'm going to be riding for a long time on the road, just flat ground like this, no real obstacles. You know, it just saves, it adds efficiency to the bike. I'm not going to lose that efficiency from bobbing, and it's just going to basically increase my range. So it's something I do every once in a while. The light here on the front is a blaze light. It's attached to the arch of the suspension right here. You can see that here's the attachment point right there, and then this came unplugged. All I had to do was just basically put this light on, plug this in, and it was good to go. And it was all synced up to the electrical system. So having this light here on the arch is cool because whenever I turn the handlebars, the light is going to point the direction that I'm steering. So it's like, you know, the light is going where I want to go, as opposed to having it on the frame where the light always points forward, and then the light is kind of where I was going as opposed to where I want to go if I'm turning. Now the bad thing about having the light on the arch here is that, you know, it's going to be unsuspended weight. It's just going to bounce around more. It might rattle free over time. You know, there's this point right here where there's a screw, this one right here, and this, I have had these get loose and they'll just kind of drop down or like swing over, and I just got to tighten them back up. And that's really just because it's on that arch of the suspension. This light right here, it is attached to the internal, it's attached to the battery and to the electronics. So the cool thing about that is there's no batteries that die on this. I don't have to replace any batteries in this light. Another cool thing is I can turn it on and off from the control center, which I'll show you guys here in a few minutes. But yeah, I just really like that. You know, nothing to replace, nothing to really hassle with. Just turn it on, turn it off whenever I want. Now, this light here in particular is not super bright. I'm actually going to try to turn it on real quick for you. Is it on? There we go. It's always hard to kind of see in the daytime, but these lights here, they're not super bright. They are going to increase my visibility overall, especially with this white frame. It's going to help add some visibility. But as far as like illuminating my path, not really going to do a whole lot. If I was really going to ride this thing off-road, like at night, I would want to get some aftermarket stuff, an aftermarket light for the handlebars, maybe something for my helmet, just to increase my awareness of the road and keep me safe, right? Down here we've got 180 millimeter mechanical disc brakes in the front and the rear. These provide, you know, ample stopping power. It's not overpowered by any means, but it's powerful. Again, which is important for for the safety, right? Because heavy bike, I want brakes that can stop this heavy bike and me, a heavy rider, you know, without getting into an accident. And you know, these brakes coupled with the fat tires, that large amount of traction there, it's fantastic. A couple of things though about mechanical brakes. You know, first of all, they are easier, generally speaking, to kind of to just like adjust over time. If you know, sometimes this cable can stretch out, you know, so I can just kind of unscrew this piece right here, tighten it up, and then that's really all I need to do, and I'm ready to ride again. Whereas opposed to hydraulic disc brakes, yeah, they're more powerful, but it's a little bit trickier to kind of get those right. You know, I have to bleed them sometimes or whatever. So basically, mechanical disc brakes, they're just simpler to operate. However, with that simplicity does come a few drawbacks. Primarily, it requires more hand pressure to stop this, and with this full stopping power. For me, that's generally okay, but for some folks who might have, you know, arthritis in their hands, or maybe smaller hands, or maybe even really extra large hands, that might be just difficult to apply the force necessary. So just something to keep in mind again. Also, because these are mechanical brake levers here, or mechanical disc brakes, the brake levers aren't going to be adjustable, so I can't let this out, or I can't bring the brake lever in to kind of finely tune for my reach. So just stuff to keep in mind, really. Yeah, got the motor inhibitors, got the tires. I think we've covered most of it here. I'm about to move on to the display. One more thing I do want to point out is this kickstand back here. It's a rear-mounted adjustable kickstand. in my opinion, this is the best place to put kickstands if I'm going to have it on a bike right here, because it means I'm not going to have pedal lock. So if I'm going to store this thing, if I'm going to pull it backwards when the kickstand is deployed, if I can't get to it right away, I'm not going to get pedal lock. It's not going to lock the bike up. So I do like that here. It's also adjustable, so I can, I can take it up, I can let it out if I want to change the angle of this bike, how it rests when the kickstand is deployed. So cool little feature there. So yeah. Oh, one more thing I do want to talk about the frame here, because this is an off-road bike, I think. Right? I mean, I can use this in the city. I can use this to commute, like EccoBike, kind of wants. But it's kind of low on bosses. So the overall functionality, I think, of this frame is a little bit lower. It's a little bit reduced, and I kind of feel like that just means to me that, okay, yeah, this is really an off-road bike. That's kind of what it's meant for, off-road fun, right? I mean, I could put a fender up here in the front. It doesn't come with fenders, but I could put it up here. There's some fender bosses, I guess you could say, down here. I could probably put something here, attach it to maybe the seat post or something. I could get a fender in the back, but there's no bottle cage bosses. There's no rack bosses. There's no front basket boss. So this is maybe an off-road bike, but is it something I'm going to use for bike packing? Is it something I'm going to use for camping, for hunting? Probably not, because I can't carry a lot of stuff. Now, if I want to have a lot of fun and go on the beach and go cruise along the sand, if I want to go to Lake Tahoe, go through the snow, maybe take it to the top of the mountain and then ride it back down or something, or maybe just ride it up, I guess, because it's electric. Yeah, that's where this thing is going to shine for sure. So yeah, now we got that. Let's talk about this display right here. This is I like this display, actually. It's one of the few kind of like vertically oriented displays that I've seen. A lot of times I feel like they're rotated like 90 degrees and then more wide like that. So let me turn it back off real quick. So turning this thing on, first of all, I don't have to have the keys and the battery to operate this, which is great. Just battery in and it's good to go. All I have to do is hold the power button and this thing comes to life pretty quickly. Little boot up sequence and then it is good to go here. Let's see if we can get a better angle, make sure you guys can see that. All right, so on the top left of this, we have the voltage of the battery, 52.2 volts right now. Top right is going to be the mode that it's in, power mode, normal, or eco. In the middle is, well, actually, sorry, on the top left here is also a battery indicator, 5-bar battery indicator, not super precise, 20% increments. I always like to have a percentage indicator so I can be like, how much do I have left? 17%, not, I don't know. I like percentage indicators, but maybe that's just a preference thing. In the middle, we've got the just the speed. Bottom left is going to be the pedal assist mode, and then on the right is going to be kind of a series of different things I can see. It can be info, odometer, tripometer, tripometer 2, and a trip timer up here in the top. So just real quick, whenever I start this bike up, it is going to start in this configuration right here. It's going to start in pedal assist level 1, and it's going to start with the lights off. So I'll show you real quick. If I, let's just say, crank up to 4 for whatever reason, and I turn it off, I'm like, okay, yeah, actually, you know what? Let's go. I don't want to take a break. I want to go ride some more. Let's turn it back on. And you're like, oh, actually, hold on a second, I'm in 1. Okay, now I'm ready. It's just like an extra step to get back to where I was. Not a big deal. I really wish that, these displays would start incorporating some sort of memory, so whatever settings I leave this thing in, it stays in there. But that's fine, not a big deal. Now, again, back to some of the cool stuff about this is it starts in pedal assist level 1, and that's where, whenever this bike is turned on, throttle is going to be live. So if I twist the throttle right now, you can see the bike does start moving. Throttle is live from 0 miles per hour whenever it's turned on. I just absolutely love that. This does have, well, technically 7, I guess, pedal assist levels. 0 is going to be just completely off, so it's in 0. If I twist the throttle now, nothing happens. If I try to move the cranks, nothing will happen. If I do want to actually use the motor, then I have to be in a positive pedal assist setting here, so anywhere from 1 all the way up to 6, and that's how that looks right here. So this configuration here is a little bit different than normal. So in order to activate the backlight here and to turn on the front headlight, all I have to do is just tap the power button. Yeah, no, it is on. It's just kind of hard to see. Okay, so tap the power button and you'll see that the light turns on. Let's see if we can do this here. So there we go, light on, I'm tapping the power button, lights off. Tapping the power button, lights on. So yeah, normally, like, on these independent button powers, I have to hold the plus button to do that, but whatever. So if I tap the settings button, you'll see it's going to, kind of hard to see here. On the bottom right, you should be able to see it's kind of switches, stuff is switching around. And that's by tapping the settings button. And it'll go again to that trip timer, the odometer, the tripometer 1 and tripometer 2. So that's how I can switch from that. If I do want to activate walk mode on this, I can hold the minus button. There we go. And it does start moving. Let's move that back right there. But again, you know, when I have a throttle that's live from 0 miles per hour, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to use the throttle to control low speed compared to the walk mode, because the walk mode is like it's set at like 6 kilometers per hour or something like that, and it's just, I would prefer to have that fine control if I'm going to walk the bike with a throttle. Like just another reason why I love throttles being live at 0 miles per hour. One thing, the other side of this coin for the throttle being live at 0 though is, and this has happened to me, so I'm just saying to be careful, please, I don't want anybody getting hurt, is, you know, this can get away from me if I'm walking with it like this and I just kind of, if I'm spacing, if I forget, and if I do give it a twist for whatever reason, I've had bikes get away from me, and you know, I just don't want anybody getting hurt with that, or like it going to traffic and like chasing after it, because that's what I would do. So again, just a reminder here, if it's a safety thing, especially with this bike, that 750 watt motor, it can pick up speed really, really quick. So if I want to actually get into the settings here on the display, I'm just going to hold the setting button, this one right here, and it's going to go into the settings. Not a whole lot I can do back here, but there is some stuff. There's setting 2, top speed, wheel size, miles per hour or kilometers per hour, and I think this is the voltage right here. And then if I want to get out, I'm just going to hold the settings button and it reverts back to that. That's pretty much it. Simple display. It's not adjustable, so I can't move it to try to like reduce glare, but you know, I feel like it's not showing up on camera on the GoPro screen. Maybe it'll look better on the big screen, but in real life, even in direct sunlight, I have not had any issues viewing this thing. So you know, glare has not been an issue for me with this, but it's also not removable without tools. So if I want to like take this thing off at a public bike rack, you know, just like so it doesn't get scratched up, that's not an easy process. I got to bring some tools with me, and like, you know, it's just not a quick and easy thing. And really that just means to me, you know, if I do leave this at a public bike rack, it can get scratched up. So again, not really a lot I can do about that, but something to throw out there. So yeah, I think, you know, I've covered this thing pretty extensively, so let's take this out for a ride. This first shot is going to be a chest-mounted angle, and this is the trail I've been going on. You guys probably recognize it by now. It's one of my favorite little trails. Just a cool spot to kind of test out these bikes. And I'm just going to go ahead and let this run through so you can see this bike in action from this angle, and then in a minute we will go ahead and switch to a frontward-facing angle. So this is going to be pretty much the same path, just from a different angle, and I'll go ahead and be quiet so you guys can kind of listen to the ride and just see this thing from this angle. And then this last shot is going to be the motor starting and stopping when I start and stop pedaling, so you guys can hear that. And I'll also go ahead and switch gears a couple times so you can see the derailleur in action. right, guys, that is it for the Nashorn review from EccoBikes. Just real quick in summary before I head out, I think this is a really cool bike for being able to go on some pretty serious off-road trails. You know, the full suspension setup here, having that air suspension in the back, the spring suspension in the fork, plus these extra wide 4-inch fat tires, 26 inches tall. A lot of suspension overall with this thing. And you know, I think something like this would perform really well in places with snow and like lots of rock underneath especially, but this would do fine on sand, mud, gravelly stuff, maybe crossing through rivers, whatever. Really anything that's going to require a lot of suspension and also a lot of traction because of these tires. And I love that I can deflate these things even more, you know, all the way down to 5 psi, and it just gives me just a humongous tire patch. Really cool there. I'm starting to love these fat tires more and more every time I check one out. Again, though, this does only come in one frame size, so there's not a lot of variety here, not a lot of customization that can happen. Only 2 colors, matte black and matte white, like we're seeing here. No real accessories being offered right now, you know, so I can't get fenders from the company. I could probably add some aftermarket ones. There are fender bosses in the front. I could probably put some fenders in the back. But again, you know, I really think this is geared for either commuting through the city, if that's what you want to do, or off-road having fun. But the utility again is going to be a little bit limited as well, because there's no rack bosses in the back, there's no fender bosses, and there's no bottle cage bosses. So fun bike, really not utility bike. But again, if you guys are looking for something fun, I think this would be a pretty cool choice. Honestly, I wouldn't mind keeping this bike myself. It's been pretty fun to test. So that's about it. One last thing I do want to say is, again, just one last time, is look, 750 watts of power, top speed of 25 miles per hour. This is a fast bike, this is a powerful bike, and it's not going to be legal to ride in a lot of areas. So I just want to give one last advisory of, you know, just please be careful when riding this. I want everybody to have fun, obviously, but just, you know, just to be safe. I don't want anybody getting hurt, and especially don't want anybody getting into like legal jeopardy if they get in an accident like in the city or something and they hit somebody. So yeah, that's it, guys. Have a great day. Thank you very much for watching. If you do want to read the whole write-up, check out electricbikereview.com. If you're going out to ride, have fun, and obviously ride safe.